You have likely scrolled through your social media feed and seen places that look so incredibly vivid, you instinctively assume they have been heavily edited. The colors seem almost too perfect to be natural, and the landscapes appear as if they were rendered for a high-budget video game rather than existing in the physical world. Deep down, a part of you is convinced that there is no possible way these locations actually look like that in real life. But here is the fascinating truth. Some places on this planet really do possess that surreal quality, defying our common understanding of nature. And ironically, some of them look even stranger when you are standing there in person, not necessarily because they are more beautiful, but because your brain genuinely struggles to process the scale and texture of what you are seeing. Today, we are moving beyond the surface level of beautiful travel destinations and diving deep into the psychology of places that look fake. We are breaking down locations that feel unreal, and more importantly, we are exploring why they might actually disappoint you if you show up at the wrong time. The massive gap between the digital version you see online and the raw reality on the ground might surprise you more than the destinations themselves. Let us begin with a landscape that looks like a masterpiece painted by a giant hand, the Zhangye Danxia landform in China. At first glance, it feels like an optical illusion because you see layers of deep red, bright yellow, and burnt orange stretched across the mountains like tectonic stripes. In the world of high-saturation photography, these colors are often cranked up to an intense, neon level that creates a false expectation. What many people fail to realize is that these colors are indeed real, born from 24 million years of mineral deposits and geological pressure. However, if you visit on a gray, overcast day, the mountains can look surprisingly dull, almost like wet concrete with faint streaks of rust. If you arrive at the wrong hour, you might stand there wondering why you traveled thousands of miles for something that looks like a muted painting. But if you catch it exactly at sunrise or right after a light rain, when the moisture deepens the pigment, suddenly the landscape awakens and everything makes sense. It is not about the place being a lie. It is about the intersection of geological history and the perfect atmospheric conditions. Now, let us transition to a place that challenges your very sense of balance and horizon, the Salar de Uyuni in Bolivia. This is one of the rare instances where the physical reality can actually be more disorienting and majestic than any photo could ever capture. During the dry season, it serves as an endless white desert made of hexagonal salt tiles, appearing flat, empty, and almost completely lifeless. But when a thin layer of water covers the salt crust after a rainfall, the entire region transforms into the world's largest natural mirror. The sky reflects on the ground so flawlessly that you lose the horizon line entirely, making it feel as if you are suspended in a void of clouds. People often describe it as walking on the sky, and while that sounds like poetic exaggeration, the sensory deprivation is very real. The catch here is that this specific mirror effect is extremely temperamental and only happens under very narrow conditions. If there is too much water, the wind creates ripples that shatter the reflection, and if there is too little, you are left with a muddy, gray slush. The version you see in viral videos is a real phenomenon, but it is a rare gift that requires immense patience and luck to witness. Next, we need to talk about a place that feels far too vibrant to be trusted by the human eye, the Grand Prismatic Spring in Yellowstone. If you have seen aerial shots of this thermal wonder, you know the signature deep blues in the center and the rings of fire-like orange spreading outward. It looks like a graphic design project, but these colors are actually produced by trillions of heat-loving bacteria called extremophiles living in the water. However, there is a gritty reality that most cinematic travel videos conveniently omit from their final edit. From the ground-level boardwalks, you cannot actually see the vibrant rings, because the angle is too low and the area is often shrouded in thick, sulfurous steam. To the average tourist, it can often feel like standing next to a giant, boiling pot that smells strongly of rotten eggs. To see the famous perspective, you have to hike up to the Fairy Falls Overlook, where the elevation finally reveals the hidden geometry. This is a place where your physical perspective determines whether the trip feels like a revelation or a humid, smelly disappointment. Moving toward the North Atlantic, let us consider the Skogafoss waterfall in Iceland, a place that has become the face of modern adventure travel. On your screen, it looks like a powerful, solitary curtain of white water crashing against a prehistoric green cliff. In reality, the sheer volume of the water creates a constant, freezing mist that soaks your clothes and camera gear within seconds of approaching. The perfect photos you see usually involve a lone hiker standing in front of the falls, suggesting a sense of quiet isolation. The reality on the ground is often a crowded parking lot filled with tour buses and hundreds of people wearing bright yellow raincoats. The magic of Skogafoss is real, but to experience the version from the photos, you have to arrive at 3 in the morning during the midnight sun. It serves as a perfect example of how the internet removes the noise and the crowds to sell a version of nature that barely exists anymore. Now, let us look at something that feels like it belongs on a different planet entirely. Socotra Island in Yemen. Socotra is home to the dragon blood tree, which looks like a giant prehistoric umbrella with veins of red sap. Because this island has been isolated for millions of years, nearly a third of its plant life is found nowhere else on the entire planet. It feels alien because, in a biological sense, it actually is alien to the rest of our modern world. But what the aesthetic photos do not show you is that getting there involves navigating complex geopolitical challenges and very limited infrastructure. This is not a luxury destination with 5-star resorts. It is a raw, remote, and often unpredictable environment where the wind never stops blowing. The difficulty of the journey is exactly what has preserved its strange beauty, making it one of the few places that truly lives up to its reputation. Let us shift our focus to the dramatic peaks of the Dolomites in northern Italy, specifically the famous Sasida ridgeline. In photos, the mountain looks like a massive stone wave, frozen in time, sharp, jagged, and terrifyingly steep. The reality of standing on that ridge is an overwhelming sense of vertigo that a two-dimensional image can never truly convey. However, the perfect shot you see online is often the result of photographers waiting for hours for the clouds to hit the peaks at a specific height. On a clear day, the mountain is beautiful, but it loses that mysterious cinematic quality that makes it go viral. People often forget that the mountains do not perform for us. They simply exist, and we are lucky if we catch them in a poetic mood. Finally, we must talk about the Vatnajökull ice caves, those glowing blue tunnels that seem to be made of liquid sapphire. The ice is so dense that it absorbs all colors of the light spectrum except for blue, creating an electric glow that feels supernatural. But there is a temporary and dangerous truth to these caves. They are constantly melting, shifting, and collapsing as the seasons change. The specific cave you saw in a magazine last year likely does not exist anymore, having been replaced by a new, different formation. This means that your experience will never be a replica of someone else's photo. It will be a unique, fleeting moment in time. As we conclude this journey, it is important to remember that not every place that looks amazing online will feel that way in person. Lighting changes the mood, weather changes the texture, and timing determines whether you see the miracle or the mundane. Oftentimes, our high expectations, fueled by curated digital content, can ruin an experience before we even step off the plane. The internet is designed to show us the best possible 5 seconds of a place, stripped of the wind, the smells, and the crowds. But the complexity of reality is exactly what makes these destinations worth visiting in the long run. The most unforgettable places are not the ones that look perfect like a postcard. They are the ones that feel impossible. They are the places that demand something from you, whether it is a long hike, a cold morning, or the patience to wait for the clouds to part. So, if you could choose one of these surreal locations to experience for yourself, not just for a photo, but to truly stand there in silence, which one would it be? And would you still find it beautiful if the colors were a bit faded and the wind was biting at your skin? Because in the end, the most real moments are often the ones that cannot be captured by a lens at all.